All right, I want to welcome everyone here to the Senate Republican Conference Room. I, of course, am Senate Republican Leader Rob Ortt. I'm joined by many of my colleagues in the Senate and the Assembly, as well as, of course, Republican Assembly Leader Will Barkley, my friend and colleague here in state government. And we are very honored to be joined today, and you're going to hear from her momentarily, by one of the fiercest defenders of our party's ideas, of our party's values. I would tell you of New Yorkers, certainly in her district and beyond. She makes sure that when people think Republican, they do think New York. And that is because she has been a leader in the House Republican Conference. She's certainly been a leader here in New York, and that is Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, who is here today. But again, we're here to talk. This is the last week of session. I know the Congresswoman is going to talk about a lot of things. I'm sure my colleague, Leader Barkley, will as well. I'm going to just try to be top, kind of high level. It's the last week of what feels like one of the longest sessions in my 11-year time here in the Senate. Now, maybe I think that every year, but this year I really think it's true. And you only need to look at the 40-day late, $11 billion increase, bloated $254 billion budget that was passed. You only need to look at the priorities, what we're passing down the stretch here. Before time runs out, we have to pass EPR, which is going to increase families' grocery bills by average of $600 or more a year. We're passing aid and dying, assisted suicide. That's the priority. With all the issues facing New Yorkers, I can tell you no one called my office over the last several months and said, you know what we need? We need this bill. They called about affordability. They called about crime. They called about taxes. They called about energy prices. They called about grocery prices. They called about CDPAP. They called about education. No one called about this, but this is the Democrats' priorities. Misplaced, out of step. But they've grown arrogant because of their one-party control that they don't think people care or are going to hold them accountable. They talk about affordability, and yet they passed a budget that was $11 billion more year over year. Our budget today is $60 billion more than Florida's budget, even though Florida has way more people. In fact, pretty soon, Florida will have more New Yorkers. They've done everything they can to make this state less affordable, from energy prices to grocery bills to taxes, property taxes. That is why people are leaving. That is why businesses are leaving. They talk about public safety, and yet they've done everything they can to prioritize criminals and those who have broken our laws over those who we ask to protect and defend us. They support labor unless you're a public safety labor union, or unless you work in the energy sector. They talk and they talk about respect for all, yet they are seen to be a bastion of voices of anti-Semitism, anti-Israel, anti-Jewish hate. They talk about making a better country, and yet the only people they seem to want to bring to New York State are those who are here illegally, taking more resources and no doubt a contributing factor to driving legal New Yorkers, tax-paying New Yorkers out of this state. And no doubt over the next several days, every major bill that they pass will crystallize their priorities. Their priorities are not about affordability. To hell with affordability. They will continue to drive up your energy bills, your grocery bills, your property taxes, the cost of living in this state. And they will tell you that it is for the greater good because they know better than you. It is an elitist mentality. Governor Hochul wants to talk about, what an abomination to have the National Guard try to quell the riots in L.A. while she deploys the National Guard here in New York in prisons. Don't let the hypocrites get away with it. I'm not gonna. Barkley's not gonna, and you can bet your ass, Congresswoman Stefanik's not gonna. We need a different vision in this state. We need a different set of priorities. We've had other people here, other leaders. I think about Tom Homan. We've had people here that I think articulate our message very well that we do every day, and are a reminder that what we fight for here in this conference, in the Assembly Conference, here in Albany, it is not a losing battle. We may not always win the floor votes here, but we have allies in Washington, we have allies locally, we have people who are fighting just as hard to make this state a better place to live for all hardworking, tax-paying, legal New Yorkers. And at this time, I want to call up one of those people who's fighting very hard. Certainly my friend and colleague in the Assembly Republican Conference, someone who is no stranger to all these issues, someone who I know has known the Congresswoman for many years, and that is my good friend, Assembly Republican leader Will Barkley.
Well, thank you very much, Ort. Are we still morning? Yep, just about. Good morning to everybody. I want to thank the leader for hosting this event and appreciate the partnership that he and his conference have with the Assembly Republicans. And I obviously want to thank my colleagues from the Assembly for being here this morning, too. Rob mentioned it a little bit. I think it's worth bearing and worth repeating, which I've done at multiple press conferences, but I just want to talk a minute about the state budget, because it really is the epitome of what the Democrats have done to New York State. First of all, it doesn't always get a lot of coverage. Maybe it's not all that important, but taken in context with all the other messes the Democrats have made of New York, it was the latest budget we've had in 15 years. It spends almost $250 billion. And when you talk about trillion in any budget, even the federal budget, you know you're talking about a lot of money. And this is a statistic I always find maybe the most interesting. It's $77 billion more than it was 5 years ago. And I dare any of our Democratic colleagues, to look New York voters in the eye and say, are we really $77 billion better off than we were 5 years ago? I'm going to surmise most New Yorkers would say absolutely not. Instead of doing what they're doing down here, we should be leading the nation as opportunity and for quality of life. Instead, we lead the nation in unaffordability, we lead the nation in crime, and maybe most tragic of all, we lead the nation in out-migration. It's so bad that I think in 2030, and Congressman, you're probably very acutely aware of this, we may lose 2 congressional seats. Now, one-party rule in Albany, what do? They're going to blame it on Trump. They blame everything on Trump. So I just want to give you some statistics that I brought here that were in effect before Trump took office, and until we get change in New York State, probably will remain in effect. New York rankings. I always find these as factual information, hard to dispute, hard to say it's Republican spin. American Legislative Exchange Council, New York ranks 50th in the country for economic outlook, 49th in absolute domestic migration, with a cumulative total loss of almost 2 million residents between 2013 and 2023. New York's the Tax Foundation 2025 State Tax Competitiveness Index. New York overall rating, big surprise, 50th, last in the country. The Mercatus Center of George Mason University, second in the U.S. for the most regulations, with over 300,000 regulations. Chief Executive Magazine 2024 Best and Worst State for Business. New York ranks 49th. And certainly not last, but certainly not least, 2024 Thumbtack Small Business Friendliness Survey. New York got an overall score of F. And I wasn't a great student, but I usually avoided the F rating. So our next speaker, we have someone who is of great stature, that has obviously cares very much about New York State and has some ideas of how maybe we ought to change this state. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik was elected in 2014, 30 years old, very impressive. And usually, and the first youngest woman elected congressperson, correct?
At the time.
At the time. Really, very, very impressive. You know when someone's that successful early on, very often they're going to have a very bright career in politics. And certainly, Elise has done that. She became the fourth highest ranking in a relatively quick time, the fourth highest ranking Republican in the House. And as we all know, President Trump appointed her to be nominated, to be UN ambassador. But to Elise's great credit, unfortunately, maybe not for her career, but her credit, believing in what we have to do in this country with Republican values and issues, she remained in the House, which I think is a great tribute and really shows what type of character the Congresswoman is. So I think she has some ideas about the future of New York State, and we certainly hope her star continues to burn bright. She's been great for the North Country, close to me. She's been great for New York State, but I think also great for this country. So without further ado, Elise Stefanik.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Leader Ort and Leader Barkley, for inviting me today to join you. Thank you to all the members of the State Senate and State Assembly Republican conferences. They are fighting the fight every day on behalf of their constituents in Albany. Here we are, another year, another failed, radical, reckless agenda and legislative session in New York State, passed by single-party Democrat rule, led by the worst governor in America, Kathy Hochul. I dubbed her the worst governor of America because she is. Kathy Hochul and far-left Democrats have once again failed New Yorkers with this year's legislative session. They have put New York last with this massive, bloated $254 billion budget. It is anti-worker, anti-family, anti-farm, anti-small business, anti-manufacturer, and anti-law enforcement. From job-killing regulations proposed, like the insane 700-cow farm cap, to pro-criminal policies that make our streets, communities, and campuses less safe, this budget and legislative agenda proposed by Democrats continues New York down the path to catastrophe, further exacerbating the affordability crisis and the crime crisis. And of course, this is all on top of the $10 million hidden taxpayer-funded slush fund to bail out Tish James for her criminal activity. Kathy Hochul's radical agenda is driving businesses and hardworking families out of our great state. Let's go over some of the highlights. Instead of cutting taxes or easing the cost of living to address the affordability crisis in New York, Kathy Hochul and Democrats doubled down on reckless spending, passing the largest budget in state history. It's why New York is losing residents and businesses at a record pace, like Leader Barkley just pointed out. Kathy Hochul and New York Democrats doubled down on making it harder to live and do business in the state of New York with painful policies like the so-called Packaging Reduction Act, which is a tax, make no mistake, on everyday goods, making groceries, household items, and essentials more expensive for every family in this state. They did nothing to improve the business climate, zero tax relief, no regulatory reform, no actions to keep employers here in New York. Instead, Democrats doubled down on job-killing mandates and further hiked payroll taxes in New York City. On top of this, New Yorkers are already paying some of the highest utility bills in the nation. Families and small businesses cannot afford another year of these soaring energy and utility costs. And what does Kathy Hochul do? What do New York Democrats do? We have the HEAT Act, which will eliminate affordable natural gas, further increase utility bills, and kill good-paying energy jobs. And showing truly just how far out of touch Kathy Hochul and New York Democrats are on the economy, this latest insane Democrat bill proposing to cap farms at 700 cows is a direct attack on our hardworking dairy farms and, frankly, on all New Yorkers who consume dairy products. And as you know, New York's dairy industry generates billions of dollars annually and supports thousands of jobs in our state, tens of thousands of jobs. I represent the largest dairy district in the state, and I was just at an event with Kathy Hochul, the worst governor in America, in Oneida County, for the Chobani announcement. And this, Oneida County, by the way, check the voter rolls. This is Elise in Trump country in Oneida County. And the Chobani CEO discussed the need for more farms, not less, more cows, not fewer. And Kathy Hochul has the audacity to present a golden spoon to the Chobani CEO, but she won't speak out about Democrat legislation that would crush our farms. New Yorkers are smart. They see right through her catastrophe. It's one of many reasons why this past weekend she was booed once again at the Belmont in Saratoga. Meanwhile, in addition to the economic crisis, we have Kathy Hochul's pro-criminal agenda continuing to make New Yorkers less safe, putting violent criminals and illegals first and law-abiding New Yorkers last. New York Democrats rejected common sense reforms to fix bail laws and support our brave police. They ignored the violent crime on our subways and on our streets. Frankly, New York Democrats led by Kathy Hochul have abandoned our brave corrections officers and allowed our prison system to fall into utter chaos. Believe me, I represent so many COs in my district who know that this governor has turned her back on them. Instead, Kathy Hochul and New York Democrats push radical bills like the Earned Time Act, Elder Parole, Fair and Timely Parole Second Look Act. These measures put violent offenders ahead of victims. That's not justice, it's a disgrace, and it's fueling New York State's crime crisis. And on top of this, Kathy Hochul refused to repeal dangerous sanctuary city policies, sanctuary state policies that protect illegal migrant criminals over law-abiding citizens. And when state Senate Republicans tried to pass Lakin's Law to let local law enforcement work with federal partners to remove dangerous individuals, Kathy Hochul and New York Democrats said no. Why? Because they care more about their radical far-left anti-American base than they care about public safety and border security. And then, of course, in the face of raging anti-Semitism and hate on college campuses, which I have led the charge on exposing in Congress, Kathy Hochul sat on her hands, refusing to pass real consequences for pro-Hamas criminals who spew vile hate and assault and threaten Jewish students. Their silence is complicity. And just last week, New York Democrats opposed legislation to honor the victims of the deadly attack on the Jewish people, the deadliest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. An absolute abomination. And if all that wasn't bad enough, as I said, you have New York Democrats who are the culmination of a corruption crisis in New York. This $10 million taxpayer-funded legal defense slush fund of your watching, hard-earned taxpayer dollars for the most corrupt attorney general in the country, Tish James. Enough is enough. New Yorkers deserve better. They deserve leaders who care more about actually cutting your taxes rather than desperately lying about it and increasing spending like Kathy Hochul does. Leaders who protect your law-abiding family, not protecting violent criminals and illegals. I've been traveling the state, have been to many of these districts, and meeting with everyday New Yorkers of all political parties, not just Republicans, but independents and Democrats as well. Please know that New York Republicans are listening to you. We hear you, the people of New York. We hear you loudly and clearly. It is time for new leadership to save our state. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Rob Ortt.
Well, thank you very much, Congresswoman. I suspect you'll have to come back up here in a moment because I think most of the questions might be directed for you. But we will now open it up. Well, I guess I'll close by, first of all, thanking the Congresswoman for being here. She's very busy. She's going to D.C. later in like a short time. And she's going to go do her job that her constituents elected her to do and that she does so well. And, of course, we are going to do the best we can here to fight against what will no doubt be hundreds of terrible, radical bills that'll be perpetrated on the people of New York over the next several days. So I want to thank her for being here. I want to thank all my colleagues for being here.